Okay, PCIe connections. This is most likely going to be the topic you're most unfamiliar with, so don't worry, I'll explain it to you. Okay, motherboard presence. Looking at a motherboard, these ports are hard to miss. So, lying below the CPU socket, these usually come in sets of 2 to 4 and usually have different lengths. You'll see shortly that these lengths have purpose. So, on the left, we have the ASRock B45M motherboard. So if you look at the CPU socket, so the square around the middle. So look down, there's a small rectangle, a large one, and then a slightly less large rectangle. And on the right here, we have an older motherboard, and this one actually has the different ports labeled. So you can see the longest one is PCIe X16, the smallest ones are X1. AGP, I'm not going to go into these. You probably, most likely, will never see these. PCI, so base PCI, which is no longer commonplace, but it's good to know what they look like so you're familiar. So that's good and all, but what is it? So PCI stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect, and PCIe stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect Express. So devices that use PCI or PCIe are designed to improve the computer's performance in some way, whether through graphical output, input-output ports, or sound rendering. So PCIe was invented in 2004 and has since then overtaken PCI as the dominant connection type. So we're mostly going to be looking at PCIe. Okay, let's talk about the types of PCIe connections. So these connection ports come in different sizes from X1, X4, X8 to X16. Greater sizes allow for more bandwidth between the device, so more intensive devices such as graphics cards, which I'll be going into shortly, will use higher sizes than less intensive devices such as sound cards. So you look on the left here, you see the ports that these devices go into on the motherboard. So PCIe X1 is the smallest, X16 is the biggest, X4 is still pretty small, and X8 is bigger. So on the right, you'll have the actual ports on the devices. So X1, X4, X8, and X16. Okay, so what kind of devices use PCIe? So the most common PCIe device is the graphics card. So these are quite big and use X16 ports. The next video is going to be all about these devices. You may also come across sound cards. So these handle computer audio processing. So while most motherboards today have built-in sound cards, these were essential throughout the 90s. Today you'll find them in computers of people who do a lot of audio-related work, as sound cards are less susceptible to electronic interference than motherboard built-in cards. And these can use any type of connection. So on the right here, on the top we have an NVIDIA GTX 1060 graphics card, and on the bottom here we have a Sound Blaster X Pro Gaming sound card. Wi-Fi cards are also common, pretty self-explanatory. These allow the computer to access Wi-Fi signals. These are slowly becoming less relevant as motherboards are having these built in. Port expansion cards, such as Ethernet ports, which is a wired internet connection, or USB ports, may be common in more intensive lines of computer work. Capture cards. This is what your favorite Twitch streamer probably uses. These allow the computer to have a separate device dedicated to encoding and sending out video, which allows the CPU, GPU, and RAM to be free of the burden. Also, these can encode video from other sources such as game consoles. So, images on the right. The one with the antenna sticking out is a Wi-Fi card. Top right is an Ethernet expansion port card, and bottom right is a USB port expansion card. And then on the bottom here we have a Camlink Pro capture card. Okay, so wrap up. That's pretty much all I have to say about these connections. They're rectangular and lie below the CPU socket on the motherboard, and they connect devices that improve the computer in one way or another. So next, I'll be talking about the graphics card, which is arguably the most important PCIe device.